I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. So today we're going to talk about something that so many people struggle with, but almost nobody talks about: toilet anxiety. And we're going to specifically talk about the fear of pooping your pants. If you've ever had the thought, what if I suddenly have to go and I can't make it to a bathroom? Or why do I feel like I need to poop every time I feel anxious? This episode is for you. And before we dive in, I want to say this very clearly. If this is something that you struggle with, you are not weird, you are not broken, and you are definitely not alone. This is something that I struggled with for years and years, and I've also worked with hundreds of people who have struggled with toilet anxiety. This fear is incredibly common. It is deeply distressing. It can absolutely take over so many aspects of your life, and it's also very misunderstood, even by professionals at times. So, today I want to explain why this happens, what's really going on in your body, and most importantly, how people actually recover from this fear. So, let's start with defining what toilet anxiety is. So, toilet anxiety can show up in a few different ways, but I'm going to specifically talk about these three ways. So, the big ones: fear of not making it to a bathroom in time, fear of pooping your pants in public, and the fear of having that urgency when you're trapped or far from a toilet. And toilet anxiety often overlaps with panic disorder, agoraphobia, driving anxiety, that fear of being trapped and stuck, and also IBS like symptoms that flare with stress. And for many, many people, the fear itself becomes more distressing than the actual sensation. So, toilet anxiety can show up because maybe you had a moment where you were out, you were in public, or you were in a car, or you were doing something and you didn't make it to a bathroom. Or maybe for you, you had a really close call. For me, I look back on my journey and I definitely remember this one moment. I had gone out to a restaurant with a friend. We were in her car driving back to one of our friends' houses, and I had this urgency and it was so bad. And I remember it was such a close call. And I don't really know if it was after that moment that my brain sort of became on that alert mode relating to the urgency and being afraid that a bathroom isn't nearby. But I think this moment definitely had an effect somewhere. But I'll talk a little bit in a minute about more of my personal journey with toilet anxiety because I don't think it was just this one close call incident. And it can be, but it isn't always for many people. So, the other way it can show up is anxiety is just always manifested in your stomach and digestively. Like, it is such a common way that anxiety shows up for people. And our brains get creative, they come up with thoughts, we develop fears. And so, maybe for you, it's like you didn't have one of these big moments, you didn't have a scary moment or a close call. It just has sort of developed over time. however you developed this fear, I just really want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. Like, we're going to talk through this, I promise, because I know this is one of the most frustrating fears to struggle with because it really does take over your life. So, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey with toilet anxiety. And I'm not going to go crazy here, but I want to give you a snippet because I want you to know I truly freaking get it. So, for me, anxiety always lived in my gut. Like, since the time I was a little kid, I was the kid who had the stomach aches, who felt like I had to go to the bathroom. I felt nauseous. I had diarrhea, all of the things. Like, I remember every time school would start every year, it was such a battle for like the first few weeks, month, or a couple of months for me to get adjusted. Like, I was just always so sensitive. And whenever I felt anxious, scared, uncomfortable, like there were uncertainties, my stomach reacted almost immediately with that cramping, the urgency, the diarrhea, that oh no feeling, right? And sometimes it happened when I was anxious, oftentimes it did, but sometimes it happened just like literally from a thought or from a very normal like sensation. I just ate food, my body was like digesting it, but even the slightest thought, the slightest sensation could really kick me off into a spiral. Like a thought like, what if you suddenly have to go and there's no bathroom? Like my body would respond so quickly as if there were an emergency. And the cycle would begin. Like the sensation would lead to the fear would develop more sensations, and then more sensations would develop that certainty that my worst fear was about to happen. And like I had to do anything and everything to make sure it wasn't going to happen. And I truly felt like I couldn't trust my own body. And I'm going to get really emotional here because I know what it's like to live this every day. And it is absolute torture when you feel like you are constantly in your head. You don't feel like you're connected to your body. You're scared of your own body. You don't even want to have a bowel movement ever again. You want to figure out how you can just get rid of the thoughts, the sensations, the fears. Like it really for years, this fear took over my life. Like, as soon as it started before I even left the house. My brain was already in that mode of like, "Okay, what if we go, we get in the car, and then we get 5 minutes from home and you have to go?" Or what if, God forbid, we get stuck in traffic? Or what if you're in the car with your friend and you get that sense of urgency? Like, every part of my life revolved around making sure that I was, quote, "safe," AKA making sure that a bathroom was always readily available, which just is not feasible, right? Like there are times and there are moments where a bathroom's not going to be accessible. But for me, that was the hardest thing. Like I remember even just walking like on the streets in different cities and thinking, what if I really had to go? What if it really hit me now? And it's like kind of you recognize it's so silly because there are literally so many bathrooms, like there are so many places, right, that you could probably just walk into, but my brain was always stuck on this. Your biggest fear is going to happen. You are going to poop your pants and it is going to be awful. And let me tell you, for years, I convinced myself I'm never, ever going to get rid of this fear. Like it was so automatic. It was every day. Like I was in it. But I have been recovered for years now. I get in my car, I go places, I do things. I don't have any of these thoughts. I don't have the fears. I'm not thinking is a bathroom close by. Like, we'll get more into it, but I just want you to hear me. Like, recovery is so, so possible. You do not have to be trapped and live with this fear. Okay, now let's shift a little bit and talk about why anxiety causes this urge to poop. Because when you have this understanding, it really, really helps. And this is something that I wish somebody had explained to me years ago because it definitely would have helped me. So, when you feel anxious, we know this physiological thing happens in your body, right? Your body goes into fight or flight mode. And that response, that adrenaline rush, it speeds up digestion. It activates our bowels. It increases urgency. It makes sensations feel louder and more urgent than they actually are. And we can think like, my body is doing something it shouldn't, right? My body's working against me. Why is my body doing this? Like, my body is broken. But this is not a flaw. It's literally just a survival response. Like your nervous system does not know the difference between I'm anxious sitting in the car and I am being chased by a predator. So this response, right, prepares your body to move. And that doesn't mean you're going to poop your pants. It means your nervous system is just on high alert. But of course, when this is something that you experience often and you develop this really big fear, you are convinced, right? Like, no, I'm going to poop my pants. This is going to happen. And I like need to make sure it's not going to happen. Now, of course, we can't just convince our brains, right? Like, we're not going to poop our pants. We're fine. Everything's fine. Like, it is one of the hardest things to try to slow down and recognize, like, my body is just having a very natural, normal response right now. Like, I need to not do all the things, right, to continue to bring my brain on this high alert. So, another thing I want to mention here, and I think is really helpful to understand, is that we all have this gut brain connection. Like our brain, our gut, they talk to each other, they send messages back and forth. And if you're somebody who leans more on the sensitive side, more on the anxiety leaning side, when things are new, unknown, when there's uncertainty, when there's actual anxiety provoking situations, you probably are so in tune with your body and you recognize, you know when these messages are getting sent back and forth. And this is the tricky part, right? Because this is normal stuff that's happening internally. But when you really develop this fear, you can get very stuck on what's going on internally. And when you get very stuck on what's going on internally, it just keeps those messages going back and forth and what creates that loop that it feels like you can't get off of. This was me when I was a little kid. And then, especially when I really developed this fear, this is such a loop that I got myself caught in of like, what's going on internally? How am I feeling? Oh my gosh, what was that? That wasn't normal. What did I eat? I shouldn't have eaten that. I'm sure you can relate to a lot of what I'm saying right now, but I think it's really important in general to understand what causes the urgency because it does help you to heal from this fear. And the gut brain connection is something that I talk about in my toilet anxiety mini class that I have because it is so freaking helpful to understand. And I swear it alleviates a lot of the shame and helps you to get out of this fear cycle. So, what I want to talk about now, because this is a good segue into this conversation, the problem isn't the sensations, right? And I know this is so hard because I always thought like the sensations are the problem, the symptoms. If I could just get rid of them, if I could just make them stop happening, like, why is my body like this? The sensations and symptoms aren't the problem, it's the meaning. And this is where toilet anxiety really takes hold. So, for example, a normal or anxiety driven sensation shows up, and the brain says, this means I'm about to lose all control. This means it's finally going to happen, right? I'm going to poop my pants. I'm not going to survive. This is going to be so embarrassing. And from there, your brain starts scanning, right? Where's the nearest bathroom? What if I can't escape? What if people see me? What if the worst case scenario happens? And that fear amplifies the sensation. And now you're trapped in that loop, right? Because you are giving meaning to everything that's happening and you're trying to figure things out and you're trying to problem solve and you're like, doing so much doing, which just ramps your body up even more, right? It causes those messages to continue to get sent back and forth. And likely before you know it, you're in full blown panic mode. And this is what often would happen to me. It would start with like the tiniest little thought, just the, well, what if? And then I would just react to it, right? What am I going to do? How am I going to get out? What am I going to tell people? How am I going to make sure that people don't see me freaking out? And before I knew it, I was in full blown panic mode. And when you're in that place of full blown panic mode, things happen, right? Like your body responds. And I know for myself, like it would create that urgency. Like I actually had to go to the bathroom. It wasn't like oh, maybe I do, maybe I don't. It was like, nope, I need a bathroom right now because I've worked my body up so much and I've convinced myself that there is a predator standing in front of me. Like I'm not just sitting in my car, right? So, a big piece of what keeps this fear alive is control, right? We are constantly trying to control. And it makes sense when you develop a fear, especially a really big fear like this one, and one that can be really embarrassing, you try to control it and you try to make sure that worst case scenario isn't going to happen. So there are things that you might be doing without even really recognizing it that are keeping this fear alive. I know I get it because I did all of these things too. So going to the bathroom multiple times just in case, right? I literally remember torturing myself, like sitting on the toilet, trying to force everything out of me. Like, I have no shame in sharing this because I know it's helpful to hear when you're living it. Like, the things you will do to make sure that you're not going to poop your pants. Like, I just want to normalize it because it's so freaking normal and human. So, trying to go to the bathroom, right? Literally trying to make yourself go, restricting food, water. Like, I was so good at this. I would not eat, sometimes for very long stretches of time, which is, of course, incredibly unhealthy, especially if I knew I had to drive somewhere that was a little bit further or if I was going on a trip. Like, I would do a lot of restriction, which was really unhealthy. And also, just in general, like restricting certain foods, restricting foods that maybe caused me to have a reaction before, like all the things. Only going places with known bathrooms, sitting near exits so I could have a quick escape, right? Avoiding car rides, meetings, travel, like especially riding as a passenger. Dear God, I am not getting in a car, right? And having this fear hit me, and then I have to, what am I going to do, right? Like, I can't just look over and tell somebody I'm freaking out and I need to use the bathroom. Another one, bringing backup clothes, bringing bags, wipes, all the things. Also using medications like Imodium. I never did that. If I had known about it, I'm sure I would have. But this is another one that I commonly hear is people taking Imodium to try to make it so that you don't have to go to the bathroom, which obviously is incredibly unhealthy, but it makes sense, right? That you are doing this because it gives you some sense of quote control. And here's the really hard truth with these things. These behaviors, they feel protective, right? They feel like they're keeping you safe, but they actually teach your brain that the fear is so valid and that what you're doing is good and what you're doing is helpful. And they really tell your brain you're only safe if you control this. And that unfortunately really keeps this cycle going. I did all of these things. I'm sure there were so many more things that I did, but I can remember being at one of the hardest points in my toilet anxiety journey because it was years that I struggled with this. But I remember one of the points in which I was like, I've got to do something. I can't live like this anymore. I went on a trip and there were a few of us and we chose an Airbnb and that we were in a different country and the Airbnb only had one bathroom. And I was like so pissed at myself because I was like, why would you have agreed to this? Why did you choose to stay in this Airbnb? You would think that I would have had some sense of safety in the fact that we're staying in an Airbnb and there's a toilet. But my brain was so wired to be on such an alert that I literally thought, what if somebody's in the bathroom? Right? What if somebody's using the bathroom and I have to use it in that moment and I can't use the bathroom? What if somebody's taking a shower? What if I have to go in the middle of the night and somebody's in the bathroom? Like, I cannot express to you how torturous this was for me. And in this moment, it was where I remember thinking, I've got to do something about this because this is crazy, right? Like, I also had thoughts of, I just wish that I could design some sort of contraption so, like, I could figure this out. Like, if I was out and I did have to go, that, like, I could just take care of it. Like, I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know, like, you're not crazy, you're not weird, you're not broken. Trust me, I've had all the thoughts, I've had all the feelings, I've had all the fears. Like, you are not alone in it. And so many people that I've worked with, I hear the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, me too. So, one of the hardest parts of this whole journey, right, is my biggest fear never happened. And sometimes this surprises people, but I literally worried about pooping my pants every single day for years, and it never freaking happened. Not once. And this is true for lots of people who struggle with toilet anxiety. But what did happen was the exhaustion, so much exhaustion from trying to prevent it from happening, so much hypervigilance, so much shrinking of my life. Like, there were so many things that I stopped doing and places that I stopped going, and like just things that I was like, absolutely not. I will not do that. And I would say the biggest thing was I lost so much trust in my body. I lost so much freaking trust in my mind. Like, I did not have any peace. And the fear stole so much more than the thing I was afraid of ever did. Like, looking back, I'm like, I almost wish it just would have happened, like, so I could have seen. But I think even for those it has happened, or for those it hasn't happened, it's not a logical thing that we can just say, like, "Yeah, it happened and it sucked, but, like, we were okay." And it's never happened, so it's not gonna happen, and you're gonna be fine, and life carries on. Like, we can't talk that logic into our brains, and I think that's why so many of the fears relating to anxiety are so freaking hard. So, let's talk about one of my turning points, because this was a really big thing for me. One of my most powerful moments in my recovery, and is for a lot of people, is when you actually say your fear out loud. I remember finally walking into my therapist that I had seen for years, and I felt like I need to tell her this, and I'm so scared to tell her this, but she's my freaking therapist. Like, she knows me. Like, I should be able to just say this, but like, you harbor so much shame, so much embarrassment, that like you don't want to tell anyone, even those closest to you. I held this from my mom for the longest time, and we've always been close, like best friends. Like, I can tell her anything. But I remember sharing it with my therapist, and then I remember sharing it with a couple of the people closest to me. And instead of the shock or judgment or what I was creating in my brain thinking I was going to get, I got calm. I got understanding. I got normalization. I got empathy. Like, and that's when I realized how much shame had been fueling this fear. Like, fear thrives in secrecy. And this is something I see in so many people who come to me and want to work with me on toilet anxiety, is shame as a huge generator of the fear. And I get it. You don't want to share it. You want to hide it. Like, you don't want anyone to know, because it can be really embarrassing. But I remember one of the most helpful things for me was being freaking vulnerable and finally sharing it and talking about it. And it didn't like get rid of the fear, right? It didn't get rid of the anxiety, like not all of it, but it helped me to start to see, okay, this is not so big, bad, shameful, scary, embarrassing. I can fix this. Like, I want to fix this. So let's talk about fixing it and how people actually heal from toilet anxiety. Because I think oftentimes we think like recovery is about eliminating sensations or finding the perfect diet or routines or getting certainty that it will never happen. But this is not how recovery from toilet anxiety happens. And I think it's valuable to mention here too. I was just thinking, when I said finding the perfect diet or routines, I remember going to all these links, like getting all this testing, doctors telling me you have IBS, which is like such a bullshit. We don't know what's wrong with you. You have stomach issues. I remember getting colonoscopies. Like, I was young, EGDs. I remember getting all of this stuff done and thinking, if I can just figure out what is happening, right? If I can just figure out the problem. And this is where I say, I wish somebody had freaking told me this is anxiety and we can fix this. This is fixable, and we don't need a medication. We don't need all these crazy techniques, tools. It's really simple. Not saying it's easy, but recovery is simple. So, recovery really is about changing your relationship with anxiety, stopping the fight with the bodily sensations, not arguing with your brain, right? Reducing those safety behaviors, building trust in your nervous system, taking small, courageous, brave, and perfect steps forward. Like, you don't need to force confidence. You need to really practice allowance, right? And allowing yourself to have the thoughts, the fears, the anxiety, allowing yourself to respond differently to them, allowing yourself to look at your actions and behaviors and seeing how they're contributing and how you can pull back and actually create trust in your mind and in your body. I would say that's the biggest thing that helped me overcoming toilet anxiety, was creating that trust in my body and in myself. I want to share this because it's just in my brain right now. One of the biggest things for me, one of the biggest generators of this fear was, what if it happens, right? And I think this is the question that haunts so many people. But what recovery needs of you is to reframe that and ask, what if I can handle discomfort without trying to control it? Because so much of the cycle, the loops that you're on, are because of control. And yes, it definitely takes practice. It takes dedication. It takes a little bit of time to start to loosen your grip on control, but it's so freaking worth it when you just let yourself see, okay, I can be a little bit uncomfortable, and maybe I don't need to continue doing all the things that I'm doing to try to keep myself in control. So, I want to say, if you are struggling with toilet anxiety right now, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not stuck forever. This fear does not define you. Like, I lived it for years and I no longer do. And I've helped so many people who thought, this is the one fear I'll never get over. This is going to be my life. I'm never going to leave the house, get in the car without thinking about this. But you can absolutely recover from toilet anxiety. And I've helped so many people to do just that. So if you're looking for some structured support, some tools, guidance, like stuff that actually works, I have a mini course called Freedom from Toilet Anxiety, where I walk you through all of this step by step. And whether you take this class or not, I really want you to know your body's not betraying you. Your nervous system is just trying to protect you, and you can rebuild trust. And all this work is so freaking worth it. You are so worth it. Like, on the other side of so much of this discomfort is a big, beautiful, free life. So I will put the link to my mini course in the show notes, and I invite you, please look at that if this is something you're struggling with, because you don't need to continue to live in torture, and you don't need to continue to live with this fear. Okay, until next time, keep taking healthy action. I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.